Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chess World Cup 2023. The World Cup of football is by far the greatest global sporting event. I watched the entire thing last year, and for chess, it's kind of the same thing. It's obviously not as big, but it's very, very fun to watch the best players in the world take on the young rising stars from all over the globe and lose to them. And that's exactly what we are going to see in today's video. It's the round of 32 in the Open, it's the round of 16 in the Women's World Cup, and this is the only tournament that Magnus Carlsen has never won. And I got news for you. It ain't looking too good right now. In this round, he took on the German youngster. I keep calling him a youngster, but he's probably like 20 years old at this point, but he's been young his whole career to me. And his name is Vincent Keimer. That's all. And I'm going to show you a bunch of other games. It's going to be a fun little chess sports center, if you will. By the way, real quick, much love to those of you who ordered a signed copy and pre-ordered this. They sold out. 4,000 copies sold out. Pre-orders for the new book are past 10,000. 10,000 people have put in a book order. And the book is still coming out in about 2.5 months. So just thank you. I've been told that if we hit 15,000, it drops on the market as a bestseller. Can you imagine? That would be pretty cool. So appreciate you all very much. Don't get the book if shipping is $40 to your country. Just wait a little bit. It'll be out there soon. Vincent begins the game against Magnus with d4. We have knight to f6. Vincent doesn't have a clock. He does. He absolutely does have a clock. Clock! There we go. I know. Yeah, he is playing with a timer. Fantastic. Keimer. Gotham, you're so funny. c4, e6, and we have knight c3. And Vincent invites a Nimzo Indian. He invites a Nimzo Indian because Magnus just had a game with white where, he played, he was white, he played into a Nimzo. But Magnus plays d5. Now, just a quick note here. This is inaccurate. Now, I'm not correcting Magnus's play, but what I am saying is, if you're going to play that setup of e6, d5, knight f6, there is no reason to start with knight f6. So something happened. Essentially, the move d4 was played. Magnus didn't want to go d5. He didn't want to go d5 because he thought against this move order in particular, he would not like to end up here because this is considered slightly better for white. White can take, get an exchange, queen's gambit decline. But Magnus did this, and probably, I would imagine, that he was expecting knight f3. I don't know. He was probably expecting knight f3. Because after knight c3, you play the Nimzo. You play this move order to play bishop b4, but Magnus goes for d5 anyway, which is very interesting. We saw this approach taken by Ding Lijian in his match against Yan Nepomniachtchi in the World Championship. And you obviously don't remember that because you don't remember anything, let alone what you even had for breakfast. Me neither, by the way. That's not an insult to you. We have take, bishop g5. And now, historically, people have played c6, put the bishop on e7 or d6, put the bishop on f5, or put the knight on d7. This is just a pure exchange queen's gambit decline. It's one of the most classic historic openings that exists. But Magnus plays bishop to b4, which is a move, but it's also not a move. Does that make sense? No? Okay. You're not supposed to play so actively because you're supposed to address the pin. That's just the meta. But Magnus makes the meta. Essentially, you follow the openings that get played. I follow the openings that get played. Magnus plays a new opening. Suddenly everyone's like, oh, damn, I didn't think about that. So e3, h6, and this, just getting the bishops out. No castling. Queen b3 looks pretty powerful. Not the best move because of knight c6. If this, take, rook b8, holds it. So, bishop d3, take. Vincent plays knight e2. That's interesting. Why did Vincent play knight e2 and not knight f3? Great question. Probably wants to support the knight and go there and there. And that's the idea. Once again, if you hear any background noise, my neighbors downstairs have been doing construction for now 2 months. We were promised 1 week. It's now on week 8. No problems though. Every day it just sounds like they're doing some crazy stuff. I don't know what they're doing. It sounds like today it sounds like they have a power washer on the ceiling. Just what it sounds like. I don't know if you can hear it. Anyway, knight e2 is the move that he chose because he probably wants to develop his knight to one of those squares, and knight f3 looks very natural, but he didn't like it for a reason. Knight h5, now he says, no, Magnus, you can't have my bishop. If you'd like my bishop, you need to play the move f6, which would be a fatal mistake because I would take your knight, then I would go here. So, knight d7, h3, players go back to normal position, and here we go. Magnus plays rook e8. 15 moves have been made, completely equal position, but Vincent is down 23 minutes on the clock. That's how it goes. So, rook c1. Couple of things about this position. Vincent has what's called a minority pawn structure. He has 3 pawns versus 4, minority of pawns, and you can minority attack. You can play b4 and try to do things over here. You could also try to maybe play for e4. Magnus wants to control this. He would love to put a knight on d6 in many situations as well, but that can sometimes be difficult. He would like to fight back, well, let's see. There's b4, right? Now knight g3. He's trying to put his knight on f5, and now we have a trade of bishops. He doesn't take the queen because it's check, and now there's no bishops, and this is the position. So Vincent is now down 45 minutes on the clock. It's a very bad situation. Very bad situation, and he just has to retreat out of Magnus's position. And essentially, the dynamic of this game is Magnus is sitting there going, come get me. Vincent is sitting there going, should I go get him? I'm down 45 minutes on the clock. I am clearly not familiar with the structure very well. And now, here comes Magnus with a5. I mean, Magnus playing a5 is him saying, I'm going to beat you. Like, it's adorable that you've made it this far in the World Cup, but you're trash, and I'm going to win now. But Vincent plays queen b1. Spends another 6 minutes and plays queen b1, and is now down 50 minutes on the clock. He has 20 minutes to make 17 more moves. That is not a lot of time. It's really not. Magnus, though, is in an equal position. So he has to keep enough tension here that it can kind of last him into the endgame. Knight b6, gives away this, puts his knight on c4. Now, this is hanging, but this is basically a trapped queen. So, queen b4 is played instead. Rook a5. But here, Vincent sees knight takes d5. That is a sick move. And I think from far away, that was Vincent's entire idea. His entire idea was to take, put his queen on b4, obviously hoping for a trade to preserve his extra pawn. And when Magnus goes here, it looks like the position for white is about to fall apart. But knight takes d5. Takes a pawn that's defended by 4 different pieces because the knight hits it, the queen hits it, the pawn hits it, the rook hits it, everybody hits it. But nobody can take successfully. If you take with the rook, I take the knight. If you take with the pawn, I take the knight. And I hit the queen, and the rook is guarding the queen. The pawn can take the rook, but the queen would take the queen. But if the queen takes the queen, then the rook takes the queen. So, knight takes, same story. I would go here, but that's still completely fine. But Magnus gets to this position, and now Vincent just offers him a trade of queens. And I got news for you. Vincent's not going anywhere. 40-something minutes down, doesn't matter. He has a cluster of 5 pawns, nice and healthy, and rook b1, rook b7 is just going to pressure, and Magnus can't do a whole lot. So Magnus now starts kind of just waiting. Will Vincent maybe give in to the pressure? Vincent plays g4. Nice move. Trades off. Magnus plays rook a2. We go to a rook and knight endgame. And now Magnus just does what any individual would do. He starts bringing his king. And Vincent pushes pawn to g5. He pushes pawn to g5 to restrict this knight a little bit and take a little bit of space. You never know. You never know if you're going to have to take space away from your opponent. You'll notice Vincent hasn't rushed with the move knight d6 because simply rook b1. Right? That's self-explanatory. But in this position, Magnus plays knight c7. And you may not realize it yet, but knight c7, according to high-depth Stockfish, is +4 for white. Magnus played knight c7, clearly intending some sort of reroute, clearly thinking that after knight d6, he still had rook to b1. But now, rook f5 is very powerful, and he must have been relying on king to e7, but there is knight f7. And he must have thought about king e6, but just something like this. And Vincent's just winning. Like, you could try to play b5, but I'm going to go g6. You can try to play b4. I'm going to go knight g5 check. And I got news for you. I'm fast enough to go here. It looks like you're queening. Knight e4 check, and my knight comes back, and I take this, and I'm just in great shape. Also, you're just going to lose a knight. So, all of a sudden, knight to d6, and Magnus has to chuck a pawn. And Vincent, happily, goes to a rook endgame. Actually, a knight endgame. He trades the rooks. Now it's knight in 4 versus knight in 3. But it's not really knight in 3. It's knight in 2, and the random cousin that's just doing God knows what with their career, that comes back to a family gathering once every, half a decade. King E8, and now Vincent just goes forward and forward and comes back with the king to centralize it, but he keeps pushing. Look at this, just a beautiful cluster of pawns. Now Vincent's heartbeat is going, oh my God, I'm going to beat Magnus Carlsen. Vincent Keimer has never beaten Magnus Carlsen in classical chess. Knight h5, he defends the pawn, brings back the knight, centralizes the king. Where's he going to go forward? He goes forward. All his pawns are going forward. King d4 and e5 on the way. He's going to push the king back, going to win this pawn, going to push everybody forward. 4-on-2 is going to win. All he has to do is not lose the 2 pawns for the knight. King and knight versus king is not winnable. King d4, knight e5. Magnus's pawns are falling. He goes forward. He runs forward, but the knight is coming back just in time to threaten b2, knight c4 check. And ladies and gentlemen, the streak of Magnus Carlsen not winning a World Cup may continue, as in this position, he resigned to Vincent Keimer. And you see Vincent's rating there is listed as 2,701. But when this tournament started back in July 30th to be exact, Vincent was not yet 2,700. This is Magnus's second time losing to a player just below 2,700 in the last 7 or 8 years. This is not a result that frequently happens, and it can only happen in the World Cup, because the young players that are 2680, 2690, 2710 that don't have a chance to usually play top-level chess are playing with top-level chess players, and here they are. The first time that Vincent played Magnus was Grenke in 2019, I think, 2020. That was crazy. That was so many years ago. Maybe 2021. I don't even remember. I think it was 2019. Look how far Vincent has come, and he is now putting Magnus on the verge. But tomorrow, Magnus does have the white pieces. It is not yet over. Now, Hikaru versus Prague. All right, we got to take a look at Hikaru, everybody, because he and Magnus are the 2 most famous chess players on the planet. We want to follow their games, and if you don't want me to look at their games first, you're lying to yourself. I see these comments sometimes why do you always feature Magnus and Hikaru first? Because they're famous. Because they're really, really famous. Yeah, sorry. Get famous. I'll cover your games too, no problem. This is the first time that Hikaru and Prague have played a classical chess game against each other. They have played Blitz, they have played Rapid, they've played Bullet, they've played everything. But they've never played classical chess, because Hikaru is a professional streamer and Prague is a professional, usually classical chess player. So we have an English opening from Hikaru. Prague strikes in the center with pawn to d5. Hikaru plays bishop g2, develops, and in this position, Prague actually lost a pawn. He allowed bishop takes knight, followed by knight takes pawn, but this is kind of insane for white to do, to lose the English bishop and give black all the light squares. So Hikaru just castles, and we have a relatively normal position after 10 moves each. Clearly, both players know what they're doing still. Hikaru now plays this move f4, trying to mobilize the structure. Prague not afraid, captures, not afraid of bringing out the bishop, because now the bishop is getting slapped backwards. The bishop finishes his development over there. And now Hikaru plays e4, and Prague plays b5. So both players have made it out of the opening with pretty strong knowledge of the position. Prague, I think, at this point started thinking on his own, played bishop d7, and played rook b8, and played b5. Hikaru on a central approach, and Prague on a queenside approach. And me moving my feet around because my microphone wire got tangled. Hikaru grabs the bishop. Prague not afraid. That bishop was garbage anyway. It literally had no prospects for the future. And Prague plants a knight firmly in the center of the board and says, Hikaru, do your worst. You have the 2 bishops. You're supposed to like empty space. I have knights. I like outposts. I like controlling the position like this. What are you going to do? All right, Hikaru mobilizes the army. Prague smacks everything in the center of the board. Prague does not have a dark squared bishop, so it helps him a lot that 4 of his 6 pawns are on dark squares. 5 of his 6 pawns are on dark squares. Do you see? Light squares, dark squares. That's the way it works. You don't have a dark squared bishop. You want to seal the gaps. All right. It's like a concrete in a construction project, right? You want to seal the gaps. Hikaru plays rook c1. Prague plays rook c8. Hikaru plays h3. And you'll notice that Hikaru's time management, he thinks for 20 minutes and plays the move h3. Of course, there were many, many variations that he was calculating here. It's just a very difficult position. It's very tough to break Prague's setup here. Now Prague plays bishop b5. Hikaru tries to play g4. Prague comes back to get the bishop. And at this point, Prague has his biggest advantage of the game, just clearly better with the black pieces. But that doesn't mean much. You could be clearly better. Hikaru no longer has a bishop pair, and Hikaru has 5 of his pawns on light squares with a light squared bishop. So clearly some positional problems here. Now, if Hikaru was playing Stockfish, if Stockfish was playing black, it would win. It would win no matter what. But my point is that it would exploit this advantage in a much more sophisticated and fine-tuned way. But Prague is a human, and just like most humans here, he's kind of struggling to find his way through, and all of a sudden Hikaru consolidates, Prague's time is low, and here comes Hikaru, giving up the pawn on a2, but creating very meaningful pressure against this pawn on c5. Prague gives the pawn away. Hikaru accepts a queen trade. We have a rook and bishop endgame. Here comes Hikaru's king. Here comes Prague's pawn. Here comes Hikaru's rook. Here comes Prague's pawn. Here comes Hikaru's bishop. Here comes Prague's king. Here comes Hikaru's king. Rook c7 back, and both players make 40 moves. It is a very tense position, and Hikaru sacrifices the rook. Pawn to c5. If bishop takes, the pawns would go hand in hand, and it would be a nightmare to prevent these pawns from going. This is actually a very instructive endgame lesson. This is why you should get my endgame masterclass, because there is a chapter on endgame imbalances and how in the endgame, rooks are not always worth 5 points and bishops are not always worth 3. Because in this case, in the case that black would have actually taken this, these are not 5-point rooks. They're just sitting there waiting to get hydraulic pressed. So c5, king f8, a3, and a very, very tense fight comes to an end on the 46th move as Hikaru plays rook b6 and offers a draw. And Prague accepts, because if he gives a check and then drops the bishop back, the position is roughly equal, very tense. Hikaru says, I've had enough. Prague says, I've had enough, and their very first fight, a very tense one, comes to a conclusion with a draw. Now, you might sit there and go, Levy, you usually don't cover draws. And I would say, get famous, and I will cover your draws as well. This was a very fun one. Tomorrow, we might have a winner or a loser, or they will play some tie breaks. There was only one winner today in the women's side. It was relatively peaceful, but this game was like the cops were waiting for the winner of this game, the police, because this was a queen's gambit declined, where white gave away the pawn on c4, and black played this line b5, which is a very interesting move, intending to deflect the knight away, and then knight b6, I imagine, would stabilize this pawn. Then black would play bishop b7, bishop b4, and try to fight against white's center. You could take this, but I'm not sure you want to give away this. I'm not sure you want to get yourself in a position where your structure is kind of ruined and black will castle, and, you know, this is, I don't know. I don't exactly know what the preparation was. But Hampi Konaru, grandmaster from India, plays a4. And she kind of wasted a little bit of time in the opening. She rerouted her knight and wanted to get a perfect moment to take on c4. And she got it. But at the cost of the e4 pawn, I mean, yes, she got that, but now here's the problem. This is a textbook lesson. Oh, and the next two games I'm going to show you are just also incredible. This is a textbook lesson of how to attack a person whose pieces are not yet developed and whose king is stuck in the center. All right, here we go. Bishop d5. There's something in chess called an initiative. An initiative is a set of moves that creates threats and simultaneously improves your position in the long run. So the move bishop d5 attacks the queen, forces it to move, and opens up the b file, which black uses immediately. So now that move creates a threat on the queen, that move creates a threat on the queen, so the queen's got to make a move away from the b file but keep guarding the bishop. It goes there. Now, seeing that the b4 square is free, bishop to b4 check. So black develops the bishop to the center, black develops the rook to the open file, black develops the bishop with check. White now has to go king e2, because if white tries to go here and tie their shoes together, the queen is what we call overloaded. It's defending this, it's defending this. So it would be knight d2, bishop d2, bishop d2. This has to guard this, but it also has to guard that, so you have to go here now, rook b2, boom, and you lose. So Hampi Konaru now can't castle. The attack continues. Knight takes c4, bishop takes c4, forcing the queen here. Black castles because white can't castle. Let's say white is going to play rook d1 here and king f1, king here. Bishop c2 forces the rook back. So knight e5. But now we continue the initiative. c5, we keep pounding away at white's position because white has 3 pieces that haven't gotten a chance to participate. D takes, now queen c7, hits the knight immediately, hits the bishop. And now the rook is going to come here. This is ridiculous. Knight g4. She gives up the knight. She gets this initiative. f5, a brilliant move. You're giving up a pawn with a check, but taking it is poison to white's position. So white has to go queen f4. Black says no queen trade. White develops the bishop finally, but now take. And now the cool, calm, collected king to h8. And do you know what the idea of king h8 is? You're trying to glitch off the map. You're trying to get out of the pin so you could play pawn to e5. And that's exactly what she does. And she goes e4 as well to take away squares from all of white's pieces. And then she goes f4. This entire game was played with the foot on the gas. Rook d5, f3 check. The king is worth more than the queen. Takes, queen f3. Very classy move. If you take my queen, I will take yours. But black goes back to e7. Opposite colored bishops favor the attacking side. White is just moments away from potentially consolidating, but it's just not fast enough. The queen hits the rook. The rook gets a chance to move, but now the queen comes in from this angle, and the rooks can't block the queen's check because of the bishop on b4, which was placed there so long ago. The king has to walk out, and it's a murderous, absolutely murderous assault on this king. The rook gets taken. White has to give up a lot of material, and it's just a matter of time until Humpy Konaru resigns. Pawn to a6, a very sophisticated move. Bishop a6. Deflects the bishop into a geometric check. And black won from the get-go. From this position, this is a masterclass in what we call initiative. Centralize the bishop, take the open file, give a check, glue your pieces together and activate your queen. Chop down, hit the queen, castle, knight goes here, strike at the center, get your queen out. Trade in, hit the queen, queen takes pawn, hitting the bishop in the pawn. It was just nonstop. It was absolutely nonstop. Also, you might have just heard the Windows noise. I didn't hear it because my headphones are plugged in. But sorry, that was not your computer. That was me. You know, they always want you to update everything. Anyway, I do apologize for those of you who I might have disrupted. Beautiful game. I got 2 more games for you, and both of these games were unbelievable. So, first of all, we have the game Wesley So versus Alexis Sarana. This is a cracking game. Wesley So has had a very difficult World Cup. Like, literally in every round, he has had a disaster of a position. By the way, my friends, does this look familiar? Yeah, it looks familiar because a couple of, because there it is. It's the exact same position that you just had on Magnus Carlsen's board, but Sarana plays castles instead of bishop f5. And then he plays like this, and plays b6. Now, Wesley has had a difficult position in multiple openings. Bishop to b5 played by Wesley, hitting the knight. And for another time in this event, he is in a position where he just does not have any advantage. I haven't shown a Wesley game yet, but he's struggling. He's struggling, and the commentators have picked up on it. He's been able to defend himself, but it's been very difficult. And Alexei just goes horse to center, and takes the bishop. Horse to the center, takes the bishop, and now he's going to go knight e4 probably, or d4 to open up the bishop. This is called the hanging pawn structure. White tries to attack on c5, d5, maybe b4, stuff like this. Rook c8, and there's d4. The door has been opened, and Sarana, looking nasty from the diagonals, trades the rook, gets closer with the knight. He's utilizing everybody. Every one of his pieces is being used right now, while this knight is kind of just eating hay on the edge of the board. Queen f5, the knight comes back, and there it is. Takes out the queen. Knight comes back in. Wesley takes a pawn. And you know what? How they say you don't want to trade queens when you're attacking? Yeah, not if you're Alexei Sarana. Knight to f4. You know why knight to f4? Because this bishop is just a killer. Knight e2 is threatened. But my friends, it's not even knight e2. It's pawn to h3. The bishop will open up the king's oxygen tank. Knight e2 will be mate. Knight c7 hits the rook and the bishop. You know what's worth more than both of those pieces? The king. You could take my rook. Knight e2 and pawn takes g2 is mate. h3, knight g3, pawn takes g2, knight to h3 is checkmate. So he goes here, and Alexei Sarana, the absolute madman, does not take back the knight. He just plays here. And white is helpless. The king cannot break out of his prison. If he plays f3 to try to go here, d2 is too fast, and rook e1 is even faster. King f2, g1, bishop, mate. And that is why, after d3, Wesley So resigned. Alexei Sarana just beat a 2770 rated player with the black pieces. Vincent Keimer just beat Magnus Carlsen. And I got another one for you. Vidit Gujarati of India versus Etienne Bacrot of France. This was a crazy game. It was a Sicilian defense, Taimanov. We don't see this a lot at top level. Knight b5. That is a rare move. Knight b5 is a very rare move. White is playing bishop e3, bishop e2, all of these different lines. Knight b5 attacking the queen, and then what? We just develop like it's nothing? We are trying to get a6 so we could take this and then drop back. Well, Bacrot's like, no. And now we just develop, and we basically just, and there it is, there's a6 finally. Now this is the position, and in this position, well, same side attacking chess. I talked about the endgames masterclass. You should get the middle games masterclass as well. Same side attacking chess, pawn to f4. This is how you start an attack in chess. Pawn to b5, striking back. A wedge in the center, preventing the easy communication of all of these pieces together, opening this up, rook f3, rook h3, this is called a rook lift, f5, knight e4, bishop e3, everybody's coming to the party, have a real good time, c5, f5 on the board, f5 is giving up the pawn on e5, he's offering queen e5 to his opponent, because after queen f3 the rook is hit, and if the rook slides over there's bishop f4, and if the rook slides to a7 there is no bishop f4, but it's still the best move, because after queen d4, rook d1, you have a massive initiative. What did you think I was gonna say? Knight takes e5, pawn to f6, Vidit gives up not one, but two pawns, f6. The point is it looks like black's position is completely stable, but if you do that, he would have sacrificed the rook. Pawn takes f6, bishop takes h7. He would have walked in with a baseball bat and smashed everything made of glass and marble in Etienne Bacrot's house. King takes h7, queen to h5, and it is checkmate in 24 moves. Knight e4, knight d7, bishop to h6, and mate is just coming because queen g4, queen g7, black would have to sacrifice his queen, and then, you know, blah, 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 and then we would get a checkmate. f6. G takes f6. The attack roared forward. Vidit gave away two pawns, but he had all the pieces ready to go. And when it was time, he sacrificed the bishop. The Greek gift, giving away the bishop to bait the king out into the open. Bacrot said no, running home, but here comes the queen. He sacrificed his rook for a defensive measure. The king has made it to his home square, but the bishop came back. The bishop came back to attack the rook and allow the queen into the territory. Bishop b7, trading the bishops, but the knight replaces the bishop, hitting the dark squares now. Knight to g6, knight to f6 check. The king continues to run. The king continues to run. And the king will run. Oh, the king is going to run away, my friends. He really will. Unfortunately, he's going to leave all the rest of the pieces to absolutely perish. And in this position, the simple retreat out of the territory, black's position absolutely decimated, Vidit up 3 points of material in the form of one pawn and a rook for a bishop. Bacrot could play on. Because actually, Vidit only has 3 minutes to make 10 moves, but Bacrot resigns. He resigns because, well, he's a gentleman. He could have played a few more moves, but Vidit got him. And my goodness, did he ever. Vidit played f4, indicating, I would like to attack you. And that is exactly what he did. He played e5, he played f5, he played f6, and he said, take all of my pawns, because me giving away those pawns opens the doors for the rest of my pieces. I hope you enjoyed today's recap. The World Cup is a tremendous amount of fun. Half of the top 20 seeds have been eliminated. Anish Giri has been eliminated. Teimur Rajabov and Shakhriyar Mamidyarov of Azerbaijan have been eliminated. And the tournament is held in Azerbaijan, in Baku. They are the local heroes. They have both been eliminated. So many of the world's top 20 players are no longer in the field. The top 4 still are Magnus, Hikaru, Fabiano Caruana, and Jan Nepomniachtchi. But Magnus Carlsen is on the verge of not returning for the 4th time in 4 attempts at winning the World Cup. It's crazy stuff. I'll see you in the next recap. Get out of here. And thank you for buying the book.